Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to tackle a really critical challenge, one that can honestly make or break a modern software team. How do you actually test a microservice architecture? Because if you're not careful, the very thing that's supposed to make you faster can grind your whole process to a dead stop. All right, let's jump right in.
And we have to start with this quote from Chris Richardson because it just perfectly sets the stakes: self-defeating and risky. This isn't just about, some best practice. It's a fundamental requirement. If you don't have the right testing strategy, you're basically building on quicksand.
So first up, let's talk about this kind of double-edged sword that is microservices. We're going to explore that core promise and the one thing, testing, that can either make it all work or make it all fail spectacularly.
Why do we even bother with microservices in the first place, right? It all comes down to two big things: speed and reliability. The whole point is to create a system where all your different teams can build, test, and deploy their own services and do it quickly and safely. It's the absolute cornerstone of DevOps. It's the dream.
But here's the problem. What happens when your architecture is built to go at Formula One speeds, but your testing process is still stuck in first gear? And that, right there, that's the exact moment when the whole promise of microservices just shatters and turns into this massive, frustrating bottleneck for everyone.
And this leads us straight into a very, very common pitfall. It's a trap that so many organizations fall into. We'll call it the brittle testing trap.
And the mistake, well, it sounds deceptively simple. You're just trying to force an old playbook onto a brand new game. So many teams adopt microservices, but they're still leaning on these old manual QA cycles, or even worse, a huge suite of slow, clunky automated tests that were really designed for a big old monolith. This really lays out the conflict perfectly. The old playbook, it's all about these huge end-to-end tests that try to check the entire system all at once. By their very nature, they are super slow. And they are notoriously brittle. One tiny, unrelated change in one little service can set off a chain reaction and break a dozen other tests. The new reality demands something different. Tests that are fast and reliable because they focus on just one service at a time.
So how do we get out of this trap? Well, the solution is all about a strategic shift in how we think. It's a concept known as descending the test pyramid.
So first, what even is the test pyramid? It's a really simple but powerful idea. Imagine a pyramid. It basically says your testing strategy should have this huge, wide base of super fast, isolated unit tests. Then you have a smaller middle layer of service tests, and then at the very, very top, a tiny little peak of those big, broad end-to-end tests.
Descending the pyramid just means we're actively shifting our focus away from that slow, brittle peak. So you start at the top by just admitting, hey, these big end-to-end tests have their limits. They're expensive. Then you deliberately push all your testing effort downward, toward those faster, more reliable tests for each service. The goal here is to build a massive, solid base of tests that gives you real confidence to move fast.
Okay, so this isn't just some philosophy, right? It's actually made possible by a specific set of tools and patterns. So let's open up this new toolkit and see what's inside.
Now this is where it gets really interesting because we can put names to the tools in our new toolkit. First up, you have the service component test. This is where you test just one of your services, completely on its own, using fakes or mocks for all of its dependencies. It just answers one question: does my service work? That's it. Next is the consumer-driven contract test. This is cool. The consumer of an API, the service that calls it, defines a contract that says, hey, this is exactly how I expect you to behave. Then the provider uses that contract to make sure it doesn't break its promises. And finally, you have the consumer-side contract test, which is just the other side of that coin, making sure the consumer can actually handle the responses it says it expects.
So you see the big takeaway here, right? The whole scope has changed. Instead of trying to test this giant, complex web of services all at once, these patterns focus on just two things. Does this one service work by itself? And does it honor the contract it has with the other services it talks to? And that, right there, is what makes these tests so fast and so incredibly stable.
And when you really embrace this new toolkit and this new way of thinking, that's when you finally start to unlock the real promise of microservices.
One of the biggest payoffs here is being able to change and evolve your service APIs with real confidence. Contract testing in particular is like this amazing safety net. It means one team can go ahead and deploy a change to their service, and they know with a really high degree of certainty that they haven't just broken things for 3 other teams that depend on them. That is a total game changer for things like backwards compatibility. And it all comes together right here on this slide. When you build your whole strategy around these faster, more reliable tests, you can run them automatically in your deployment pipeline for every single little change. This is it. This is how you get the full benefit of a microservice architecture. This is how you finally achieve that original goal: rapid, reliable delivery.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Take a good, hard look at your own projects. Is your testing strategy a true enabler? Is it helping you move faster with confidence? Or has it quietly become the very bottleneck that's holding you back from what your architecture could really do? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.